Hello, beloved. To my students and whoever else might come across this, I want to talk quickly about the types of literature we find in the Bible. The Bible, unbelievably, is not a book. It's actually a library, and that's what we want to look at. Alright, so we're going to start with the Old Testament. And the Old Testament can be divided into 4 sections. And the first will be the books of the law, or books of Moses, or sometimes called the Torah, or sometimes called the Pentateuch, the 5 books. These comprise of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Although Deuteronomy 34, the last chapter, actually wasn't written by Moses, probably by Joshua, because by the end of 33, Moses is dead. So there is that. The next section is history. Joshua, Judges, Ruth, 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. And that's your history. Now the interesting thing is, in the English Bible, you have 1st and 2nd Samuel, Kings, and Chronicles, and they're sort of in reverse alphabetical order, right? SKC. But in the Septuagint, the Greek translation, there's just 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Kings. And the Tanakh, the Old Testament version Hebrew Bible, has it different as well. But we're going to go with the traditional Christian alignment of 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings, 1st, 2nd Chronicles. The next section is poetry. Now, poetry may sound like it's the roses are red, violets are blue, but it's not necessarily that. It can be epic poems as well, which is what starts off this section. The book of Job, which is reputed to be the oldest book of the Bible period. Job, in fact, is an epic poem, much in the style that will come later of like the Iliad and the Odyssey, which is literally 700 to 800 years at least later. But it's an epic poem. Job starts us off, and then there's Psalms and Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Songs, which is its traditional title in both the Hebrew and in the Septuagint. The Song of Solomon comes about as an English translation, but Song of Songs is what is generally regarded as the more accurate title. It's not the end of our poetry, for there's a poetry book stuck into the prophet section, Lamentations. We're going to get to that in a bit, but just remember that Lamentations is actually poetry. Our last section of the Old Testament Bible is the prophets. Now the prophets are divided into 2 sections. We call them major prophets and minor prophets. Not because the major are important and the minor aren't, but simply because of their size. Major prophet books tend to be long. Isaiah, for instance, has 66 chapters, whereas Obadiah is just 1 that's in the minor prophets. It's kind of a little confusing when you get to Zechariah, because it has 12 chapters, and you're thinking Daniel has 12 chapters, but in the Septuagint, Daniel has 17 chapters, and some of those are added from the apocryphal section. So the major prophets are Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and Daniel. Then the minor prophets follow in order right after Daniel: Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. And that rounds out our books of the Bible of the Old Testament, that library from Genesis to Malachi. A few points and caveats I want to point out is that the books in their sections are chronological upon their finishing or completion. For instance, let's take books of the law or the Torah. Genesis is finished, and then Exodus is finished, and then Leviticus, and then Numbers, and then Deuteronomy. So the books in their section are chronological, but that's based on their completion date, which is why you end up with Ezekiel happening before Daniel. Even though Ezekiel was literally born after Daniel, Daniel, in the major prophet section, outlives him, and he publishes his after Ezekiel. And last but not least, little caveat to notice, is that the book of Jeremiah used to be 1 section. Because, of course, the books of the Bible were not written chapter 1, verse 1. They were just written as books, things to read, collections of writings from authors, poets, and historians. And in that process of division, the works of Jeremiah were split into two. For Jeremiah was one book. There was what we call Jeremiah, and then the second part, which happens after the destruction of Jerusalem. His lamentations and his laments about watching the smoke arise and his beloved city dashed to pieces. And that book is in a completely different style. In fact, it's an acrostic poem in Hebrew, and that's part of what makes it poetry. So Jeremiah and Lamentations of Jeremiah are kept together, even though they're different types of literature, because they belong to the same author, as we know. There we go. That's our walk and tour through the types of literature of the Old Testament. Hope you enjoyed that, and check out the one for the New Testament.